Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I'm your host, Jay Acharya, CEO of Aspire Consulting and Training Limited, and this is the Becoming the Leader in You podcast. In every episode, I'll be talking to guests about their leadership stories, both personal and professional stories of inspiration, successes, and of course, challenges and how they overcame them. But before we go any further, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. And as well as being on YouTube, you can also listen to us on Apple, Amazon, and Spotify, and also other podcast stations. My guest today started in retail operations for 15 years, so he knows real pressure, real people, and definitely a few rotas that made no sense. Then he moved into L&D, learning and development, helping other leaders across the UK, Europe, the Middle East, and North America, from first-time managers to board level. And qualifications, let's just say he didn't skim the brochure. He collected it. CIPD, MBA, ILM, CMI, SL2, Belbin, DISC, NLP, emotional intelligence, the full set. And if there's a leadership model out there, he's probably delivered it and made it better. He's even contributed to CIPD toolkits and reviewed for CMI Management Book of the Year. So if you ever wondered, how did they get that management job? This should clear a few things up. So please welcome Matt Brown from Develop Your People. Matt, hi there. How are you?
Hello. I'm very well. Thank you, Jay. I'm feeling kind of, oh, God, have I really done all of that?
I'm sure you have. I'm
I have. I've got the certificates to prove it.
Fantastic. Again, I'd just like to say thank you so much for taking time out and joining both viewers and listeners on podcasts and on YouTube. But Matt, please tell me a bit more about yourself and what you do with Develop Your People.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have been, as you mentioned, I did 15 years in retail operations, and then, being the shy and retiring person I am, I opened my mouth at a meeting and said, the biggest problem we have is that we don't train our people properly in how to become leaders. And my boss said, you're right, do something about it. And that's how I moved into learning and development. And it's really interesting, actually, because I now look back at it and think, wow, it was like a really eye-opening moment where I just suddenly thought, this is what I should have been doing for years.
Dare I ask when you started then?
You can ask, but I've been doing it for over 25 years now. So we're going to be somewhere in the region 1998, 1999.
Right. Okay.
So I can say last century.
Yeah, I know that feeling. I know that feeling. So what does Develop Your People do?
Well, I worked in corporate learning and development for 20 plus years, and then for various reasons which would take way too long to go through, corporate and I decided to part. They paid me to go away, which was very kind of them. I was made redundant, and I thought, you know what, I've always wanted to run my own consultancy and to be able to own what I do, because one of the challenges in corporate was you will sometimes be sent off to deliver something that maybe you don't feel 100% confident in. And I always worried that, was I doing a good job for the learners? So I decided that what I wanted to do was to set up my own consultancy specializing in leadership and management development, offering it to corporations. I also work as an associate with a number of other training providers. And while I don't travel overseas as much as I used to, I still spend quite a bit of time on Zoom and Teams dealing with people in other countries. So I started in 2019 thinking, what's the worst thing that could happen? And it turns out it was COVID. So that was, but interestingly, that to me was a very, very rapid learning experience, because I like to think that I have achieved probably a good level of competence in terms of delivering face to face, and suddenly having to do the virtual, and losing so much of the dynamic of being able to see the whites of people's eyes and all of those types of things. I found it really, really challenging. And I
Mhm.
was absolutely ecstatic when we came out of COVID and people started going back to face to face. I still
Yeah,
deliver virtual. I don't mind doing it occasionally, but I'd much rather be in a room with people, because then you can have the valid rabbit hole discussions.
yeah, of course.
And I
Of
think, yeah, it's you mentioned earlier about leadership theories. Yes, I probably have delivered most of them, but I'm a great believer that, yeah, theory is important. It gives you a framework, but
Yeah,
what matters is, how does it work? How can I
application.
how can I use it? And
Yeah,
I love it when people start asking things like, okay, we've talked about theory X. How does it work in this situation?
of
And
course.
then you get really challenging delegates who I absolutely love, who will then say, okay, but what about this situation? And what about
Mm.
this situation? And then you think, I've earned my money today. But not only have I earned my money, I've added value for that person, that I've taken this box or triangle
Yeah,
or circles or whatever it is, and we've brought it to life and hopefully given them some tools that they can take away and they can use to help them do their job better and help their people do their jobs better.
exactly. Absolutely. And I love the fact, when we talk about theories, when we talk about models, I remember quite some time ago, I was talking to a client, and we'd done some work with some models. And I had a conversation with them, I think it must have been about 6 weeks later, and they said, it's not working. It's just not working. And I have to turn around and say, well, I get what you're saying, but this is a model that's proven to work, and
Mm,
tell me why it's not working. And it was shown that they weren't putting it into practice.
yeah.
So ultimately, that was my come in to say, the models work, is the people that don't make them work.
Mm,
And
yeah.
that's what we need to be mindful of. But having said that, there are so many models and theories and yeah, things out there that people can get muddled up with and can get
Yes.
confused with, and spend too much time concentrating on the model, not on how to initiate it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's
So
got to be something that helps you do your job. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. So I say this to all of my guests, that the podcast is called Becoming the Leader in You. So what does that mean to you as a person?
I would say that the to me, more than anything, is actually realizing that I'm not there yet. Purely because you mentioned all of the qualifications and all of that, and
Yeah.
I fundamentally believe I can't really go out and try and educate people unless I'm trying to educate myself as well.
Even after
Um,
25 years?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know everything. I always like to say in most training classes that I run that I don't know everything. And with a bit of luck, somebody will drop some absolute pearl of wisdom into the day that I can then use in future. Claiming, of course, that it was my idea. But that's not theft. That's just sharing of knowledge. But no, to be
Yeah.
serious, I think I think there's a huge danger of saying that you know everything, and what's it, the,
Mm.
the the Ken Blanchard thing, that if you think you know everything, you should go into a field, dig a big hole, climb in, and get someone to chuck the mud on top of you. Um, and it's not just about formal education. I think
Yeah.
having a curiosity is
Mm.
really, really important. And in terms of what does the leader in you actually mean to me? I was at a webinar. This was probably it was during COVID, I would imagine, because I did a
Mhm.
lot of webinars during COVID. And there was a lady called May Bush who used to be the chief operating officer of Morgan Stanley in Europe,
Mhm.
and she made one statement that really sort of struck me like a bolt of lightning. The power of it, which she said, "Leadership with an uppercase L is a position, but
Mm.
leadership with a lowercase l is a behavior." And
Wow.
to me, that yeah, it really, really resonated with me that it's not about what does it say on your business card. It's about
Yeah.
how do you behave, how do you interact with other people, how do
Mm.
you manage the relationships that you have with your people, and also thinking about your people. One of my favorite expressions is to say that if there was a book called Leadership 101, and if there is, I
Mm.
haven't found it yet, but if you look at that book, page 1.1 should say, know your people. And
Absolutely.
absolutely, but not just, not just what are they good at, what are they less good at, these kind of work related things. You
Mm,
need to understand their motivations, and you also need to know them as people, know a few things about them,
mhm.
so you can have a conversation with people as a person, not just as a payroll number.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we're starting to develop relationships, because I think that if we want to be a truly effective leader, we
Mhm.
need to have effective working relationships with our people, not just a boss
Of
subordinate
course.
relationship.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I so agree with what you said there. It's funny because in other podcasts, we've been talking about what leadership actually is.
Mm.
And one of the podcasts, we identified that we think that there's only one role with leader in it, which is team leader. Apart from that,
Mm.
every other role is either a manager or a deputy or a vice president or a president.
Mm.
But there's no roles as such with leader apart from team
No,
leader, which says a lot
100%.
about what the word is. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love what May Bush said about the capital L and the little L. I think that makes a lot of sense,
Mm.
and it's about who you are. And the language, the word that you use, curiosity, that is constant in every single podcast I've
Mm.
done. And it is about knowing your people. Totally agree there that as a leader, as a person that is overseeing people out there, you need to understand their abilities, their competencies, their capabilities, in
Mm.
order to take them on this visionary journey that you as a leader would create. So, and I was going to follow up on that question and ask about where you think you might be failing short or falling short. But you've already mentioned that as well by saying that you don't truly believe that you're there yet after
No,
25 years.
I'll be honest with you, Jay, that if you were to look up the word imposter syndrome in a dictionary, you'd probably find a picture of me. Um,
And me.
yeah, I think, what's it they say, the default position of the human brain is negative, and I think
Mm,
I can be very negative in my perception of myself. I can be very overly critical, and
mm,
I still look at things and think that, yeah, there are so many people out there that know so much more than me.
yeah.
And that, I suppose, is what drives me to want to continue to learn. But also, I will be honest, I am a leadership nerd. I
Tell me
do
more.
I do read leadership books at bedtime. My wife
Ah,
thinks I'm completely weird. How can you read that at bedtime? Doesn't it stop you sleeping? And the answer is no. I really enjoy them. I find them
wow.
interesting, provided it is I have a choice as to whose books I read. I don't. Some of
Mm,
them, they're way too heavy. They're way too
yeah.
intellectual pieces of work. I like the fables that you can
Okay.
actually draw the learning from just by
Yeah.
reading a story. Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And do you know, that's something I'm one of these people that can't read. And I don't mean I can't read. It's just that I
Yeah.
don't have that mindset to sit down and read books about leadership,
Mm.
read books about how to lead people. And ironically, I've written books about how to
Mm.
lead people and how to have conversations.
Mm.
But it's about what we take from it. And it comes back
Mm.
to the execution of what you know. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's about that simplicity. It's about bringing things back to basics and just having those
Mm.
conversations. How do you actually get people on board with
Mm.
what you need them to do?
Mm.
So let me ask you another question about your inspirations, the people that have inspired you or shaped you. If you had to name one person or one situation that shaped you as the person you are today within that leadership role, who would that be, or what situation would that be?
That's a really interesting question, because I did know that you'd be asking me that, and I actually sat down and thought about it. And I see little things that I've taken from so many different situations, but
Yeah.
I kept coming back to one person who, strangely enough, was the very first manager I had when I
Okay.
left university back in 1984. Whew,
Wow.
yeah, yeah, it's scary, isn't it? Anyway,
There's a book
because
called 1984.
I know, yeah, I lived it. And no, seriously. Anyway, no, because it was a lady called Kathy, and she was just very supportive of her people. She was very appreciative of the efforts that she made,
Mhm.
and she made you realize that actually it's not about you. It's
Okay.
about the other people. And not only that, the other thing for me was I felt that she saw something in me that I didn't know was there and
Mm,
believed in me and was instrumental on moving me towards a management ladder. And as I
right.
say, the rest is history. So I look back on how she led us, and I do try to emulate. The other thing I would say, you didn't cross her. You know, she wasn't a
Really?
soft touch at all,
Uh-huh.
but she understood that there were ways of getting people to do things. If you treated people
Okay.
with courtesy and respect, and more importantly, you acknowledged the efforts that they put in,
Yeah.
you could push your people. And
Right.
I
Okay.
found that really, really useful. I can also think of any number of just little snippets I've taken from this.
Mm.
And sadly, I would also say, in answer to that question, I can think of some people who I have learnt how not to be a leader from.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I can get that. I'm not going to go down that route just
No,
yet.
I don't want to go there either. You know.
Let me ask you just to follow up on that then. So, you say that it was back in 1984 that you were given this sort of leadership lesson from your then manager. How do you instill what you learnt from her in what you're doing today?
um, More than anything, I think is to get people to understand the concept of the shadow of the leader, that
Hmm.
every one of us casts a shadow. And I always
Yeah.
like to look at it of getting people to think about when they were first put into a position of managing people, and
Mm,
how they would have on that Monday morning or whatever day of the week it was, when they before they went to work, they would have given some thought to, how do I want to be a
yeah.
leader?
Uh-huh.
And yeah, whether it was in the shower while they were eating breakfast, sitting at a red traffic light, whatever it is, we all would have had this process, all thought about it. And if we can get people to understand that what they actually most likely did was look at the leaders they had,
Yeah.
think, I liked working for them. I liked the way they did that. I liked the way
Sure.
they did that. Or I didn't like working for that person.
Hmm.
I didn't enjoy it. It made me feel bad about the job,
Sure.
etc. I don't want my people to feel bad. And how
Yeah.
we then all become an amalgamation of all the leaders that we've had. But
Yeah.
then there is the $50,000 question, and that is, who do you think your people are looking at to learn how to be the leaders of the future?
That's
And
such a good question.
then getting them to think about, are you displaying behaviors they want to copy,
Yeah.
or are you displaying copies that they are going to want to avoid? And obviously I never want
Totally.
anyone to answer it, but I want them to think about it, because I'll tell you what, Joe, you don't half see some pennies drop.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And Jenna, I'm slightly different there. I will actually ask the question
Mm.
directly,
Yeah.
expecting an answer, and
Yeah.
I'll ask the question, who do you want your teams to be seeing as
Yeah.
their leader? What are those qualities? Do you have them?
Mm.
And that's very direct to those individuals, because it
Mm.
raises a question to say, having had these conversations with you, there's things that I know you're not doing as a leader or as a manager,
Yeah.
and there's things that you can learn to do. And it's easier for them to, obviously it's easier for me to say, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to improve this or improve that behavior or that language. But it's about them coming up with it, it's about them saying it. And it's important
Mm.
that you talk about that penny dropping. They're the ones that realize that penny's dropped and picking it up with all the
Yes.
information they
Yeah.
need on it.
Yeah.
Leadership is considered a belief to some people as well.
Mm.
And you've mentioned how long you've been in the realms of leadership and development and management. And there's certain, you've also talked about the beliefs that people need to have in order for their people to follow them as well. So if I was to ask you the question about something that you believe in leadership, that you strongly believe in, that goes against or other people disagree strongly with, what would that be? Tell me, Matt.
This one was really easy. I knew instantly what my
Oh, wow.
answer to this one was
Okay.
going to be,
Tell me
because
more.
I fundamentally believe in the radical idea of, why don't we train people to do a job before we give them the job?
Okay, I get it. I totally get it, because that's living in the real world.
Yeah,
That's living in a world of rose-tinted glasses.
yeah. But the big thing I think, Jay, is that what we do in most organizations, not every organization, but most organizations will promote people on technical ability. They
Mm,
will say, you are good at doing this job. I am now going to put you in charge of other people doing this job.
yeah.
And we're actually now asking them to do a completely different job.
Mm,
And we are not giving them the support that they need to enable them to adapt to the new job.
yeah.
And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, when did I first attend any leadership or supervisory development training? And I actually came down to the answer that the first time I attended any training of that type was the first time I delivered it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that was 20 plus, probably 17, 18 years into my professional career, where
Yeah.
I suddenly started looking at things thinking, I've been doing one or two things wrong for quite a number of years.
I'll let you into a little secret as well. I was exactly the same. The
Mm,
first time I had any leadership or management training was when I wrote it and
yeah.
delivered it, and
Mm,
thought, my God, I've
yeah.
been doing things wrong. And
Yes.
now I'm working with people to get them to sort of
Mm,
do things in the correct way.
mm,
And I feel like such a hypocrite.
yes. But
So,
I think, but then also, Joe, if you think about that, I think one of the traits of the best leaders is to accept that they're not perfect, accept that they made mistakes, and
mm,
be comfortable to put their hand up and go, you know what,
yes.
guys, I'm sorry, I screwed up, I didn't mean to.
Excellent. Yeah.
Because I think the leader who thinks they're perfect
Mhm.
has no credibility with their people, because their
Yeah.
people will all look at them. They know they screwed up.
Yeah. But unfortunately, when you do look at a lot of individuals that are in are on social media, in the media, on the news, and you look at what's going on in the world, we have so many people who aren't out there, people like you and I, who know what leadership is and
Mm,
realize that's not it.
yeah.
And that's a fantastic example of how
Mm.
not to do it, with the
Oh, yes.
language that you're
Yeah,
using, with the behavior that you're
yeah.
demonstrating. But then
Mm.
it's embarrassing also when you see people who follow them blindly,
Yes.
and one
Yeah.
has to question, how does that person
Mm.
have that ability to have people follow them
Mm.
when every single word or every single thing that they say and do
Mm.
is 99.9%
Mm.
questionable?
Yeah. When I was doing my MBA, one of the things we looked at in leadership was what they referred to as the dark side of leadership and how people
Yes.
misused charisma.
Yeah.
And it would not be appropriate for me to mention which world leader I wrote an assignment on, but I'm sure it wouldn't take very long for people to work it out. And
Yeah.
it's just frightening. You think about that when people have charisma, they
Mm.
will inspire people to follow them. Like you say, even though everyone looks at it and thinks, what is wrong with this person?
Mm.
And why do these people follow them blindly?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. And
Mm,
that comes to, you talk about charisma, and you've got the people out there who are able to influence so well,
mm,
and they influence it in a positive way. But then you've got the people or the individuals who are doing it for themselves. They're not looking at the
mm,
development of their teams,
yeah.
because there's potential intimidation of their teams,
Mm,
but they then manipulate, and they use different methods to control those individuals. And I openly
mm,
talk about the leadership styles of influence and manipulation, where I say that, are you a leader who is influencing your people to improve and do better and become better than you? Because then you've given them that
mm,
lift, and they can
yeah.
turn around and say, that was the person that inspired me. Or are they going to be, and you mentioned the dark leadership realms, and it's about saying, or are they manipulating you
Mm,
to follow their lead,
mm,
because it's all about them and
yeah.
their successes and
Yeah.
their achievements? And there's
Yeah.
many people out there that do that.
Absolutely. And if we look at Jim Collins and Good to Great, and he talks about the
Mm,
level 5 leader who
yeah,
basically is considering the long-term good of the organization,
yeah.
not is there a nice plaque to them on the wall in 10 years time after they've retired.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. But and it's a shame because there's so many people out there who want things named after them. So
Yes.
that's it.
Yeah.
So let's leave that one there.
I think we best. Yeah.
But with the roles that you have with the clients that you're working with,
Mm,
you're fortunate that you do work with some extremely well-known clients. We've discussed them on
mm.
our previous phone call. Um, as a consultant working with lots of different organizations, when do you find that pressure becomes the highest for you, and how do you deal with it?
Mm. I, to be honest with you, I find that far too often you're asked to come in and deliver a solution
Mhm.
without there being a consideration of what the problem actually is.
Right. Okay. Tell me more.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we need training.
Mhm.
Okay, so what is it that is causing you pain? What are you looking to achieve by this training? And not all by any means. There are very, very many excellent organizations who are able to answer those questions.
Mm.
But you get some who will just sort of say, no, 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 you're the consultant. We're bringing you in. That's for you to know. And then you think, well, I will do the best job that I can do to help
Mm.
you and help your people. But it's kind of difficult if I don't know what the expectation is.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I find it so interesting when you talk to so many people on so many training courses. And if I had a pound for every time someone has said something similar, who really needs to come on this training? My boss. I wouldn't be talking to you, Jay. I'd be in the Bahamas, I tell you.
Yeah.
It's,
No,
it's interesting that it comes back to what we were talking about earlier.
yeah.
Some people get to a level and think, I no longer need development or whatever.
Yeah, of course. And with those sort of conversations, I have to admit, whenever someone says, "Do you know who really needs that training?" It is my boss, and I always say, "Okay, if that's the training that they require, why don't we get them on board?" Oh, I
Mm,
can't have they can't be in the same room as me. We can't
mm.
talk honestly or openly
Oh,
because my
yes.
boss is there. It's like, why not? What
Yeah,
sort of culture have you created where you can't have honest dialogue with
yeah,
the people that you report into? Because ultimately they're the ones that might be putting pressure on you without
mm,
realizing it as well. And that's a
yeah,
positive spin to it, to
yes,
make people realize who are my people. You said it at the very start of the podcast. You talked about leaders understanding who their teams are, and if they don't, then that they're setting everyone up to fail,
mm,
ultimately themselves.
yeah.
But
And how can we achieve any kind of psychological safety in an
yes,
organization if you cannot have that situation?
exactly,
I,
exactly.
mm,
And that's where our responsibilities come as consultants and trainers, to have those conversations, to say, okay, let's get that person in and see what's stopping them from having this development. And sometimes it does come down to that there's an element of, I don't want people to see that I need this, and that vulnerability comes out.
yes,
Um,
yeah,
because ultimately, if you're a good leader, you've actually got, if you're a fantastic leader, you'll have a fantastic team around you that don't need you every single day, but they just
yeah,
need to say yes or no, and that's
yes,
it. Because they're
yes.
delivering, they're fulfilling their
Mm.
obligations.
But
Um,
also, are you not there to almost make yourself superfluous to requirement by developing the other people to become the leaders of tomorrow?
exactly, and that's the second time you've said that, in fact, Matt. And that leads me on to a different type of question. Um, within your role, what sort of conversations do you have with your clients to support the development of their workforces
Mm,
and make them see what the future could look like,
yeah,
with their, I suppose, with their input and their
yes.
influence?
Well, I think there's a number of tools you can use, and I think one of them, I've mentioned curiosity a few times. I
Mm.
think it's very, very important that we look beyond just the sort of the training environment, and we're
Yeah.
understanding what's going on with the population and demographics and that. So you first of all, you've got to start making people aware that, yeah, I realise this is a UK problem, but it does fit with the US as well and some of
Mhm.
Northern Europe, not with the Middle East and other places. But we've got an ageing population.
Mm.
So I know, you can say to some of these people, I know you're not probably bothered about what's going to happen in 15 years because you'll be retired.
Yeah,
But where are the leaders in the organization coming from?
that's
How
right.
are you going to make sure that the talent that you have in your organization
Mm.
stays in your organization and doesn't decide to move on?
Yeah.
Um, One of the other things that I always like to talk to them about is I came across this amazing quote. I don't know who said it, and I wish I had written it down, but it said the biggest difference between top level sport and a top level in business is that in sport they have a bench. And now I appreciate in business you can't have a bench of people ready to step in, but have
Yeah,
you got, what is your succession plan?
absolutely.
And also, what is your retention plan?
Yeah,
Because
totally.
there's that, and most companies, their retention plan is I'll throw money at them if they resign, and that's not really a retention plan.
No, not at all.
So,
It's funny because, again, when I talk to my clients, and it's kind of like asking the question, "So what are you doing, or how's your team surviving if you're out here having this leadership or management training?"
mm,
And the responses are, "I've got a fantastic team. They're amazing.
mm,
They do this, they do this, they do this, they do this." And it's kind of, wow, this is really refreshing. However, when we start doing the training itself, when we're going into the sessions, it's kind
mm,
of like, oh God, yeah. Do you know what? Patrick, I know that when I go in, Patrick
mm,
is going to be the first person to say, we couldn't do any of this because you weren't around. You
yeah,
weren't answering your phone. You weren't taking your emails. And it's kind of, no, because I was in a training session.
mm,
And that makes you realize, do you have the right people there? Or are you overly micromanaging your
yes,
teams?
yeah.
And yeah, so it makes
It's
you,
interesting, Jay, because listening to you, the first thing I thought when you said that, there's a lack of empowerment there, if ever I heard it.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I think this is one of the challenges that we are facing.
Mm,
You talk about the aging population, and you're finding that more and more individuals are actually staying within their roles for a longer period of time.
mm,
So they've got senior positions for two reasons. Firstly, they enjoy what they're doing, and they don't know what they'll do when they retire. But secondly, it's because they may not have the right people to take over their roles.
mm,
And that in itself is something that needs to be discussed in
yeah,
corporations. What
mm,
is your succession plan? When that person joins your business, what's their 5-year plan?
mm,
How are you supporting that 5-year plan? You don't want people to leave the business and go somewhere better. You want people to stay within your business and grow the business and make that business better, so that you're fulfilling obligations to individuals joining your business, so they get to the point where, actually, I know where I will be in 5 years. I'll know where I'll be in 10 years. And if I am going to another organization, I've got all this experience, this quality experience, the support of a manager who's letting me go to this other business because they know what I bring to that other business is going to be exactly the same, if not better, to what I've done for this organization. And that in itself is when you know that you've got a true leader who's
mm,
willing to let their people go,
yes,
once they've
mm,
developed them and
mm,
trusted them and supported them to
yeah.
that level. Um, Matt, I'm going to say that we're coming to the end of the conversation, and it's been fantastic. But I always finish with the question of you and having honest conversations with yourself. If you had to have one honest conversation with yourself, what is it, and what stops you from doing it or having it?
There's a painful question, isn't it? To be honest with you, I think that I do quite regularly fall into a bit of a complacency trap in respect of you've mentioned the fact about the clients. I've got some very good clients. At the moment, I've got some very, very good contracts that are keeping head well above water,
Mhm.
generating quite a bit of work. And I know full well that I need to sit down and give myself a big talking to of saying, right, stop taking it for granted.
Yeah.
What's your plan if?
Yes.
And I think, I don't know if it's just me, if or is that a common problem amongst freelance people, that we don't tend to have. I don't I don't really tend to have a business plan as such. When I
Mm.
started the business, I had a great plan of what I wanted to do and things. And just over the years, I've become, I think complacent is the right word.
Yeah.
If things are going well, if it ain't broke, don't try and fix it. So yeah,
Absolutely.
I need to give myself a stern talking to, um,
Uh-huh.
before my business partner, or wife, as she is also known to, does it for me.
But I think that's what we do,
Yeah,
as consultants and trainers. We go out there and we sort of talk the gospel of business plans and how
yeah,
important they are, how important action plans are, having backup plans. And then when we think about ourselves, we think, oh God, when was the last time I actually had some sort of contingency going?
mm,
And it's a scary thought because there's many of us out there.
mm,
And, I have to admit that COVID was one of those times. You mentioned 2019, setting up your business, and then everything happens. And COVID, 2020
mm.
was due to be one of my busiest years ever. And
Mm.
automatically it just went. And it's about
Remember
adapting.
it well. Yeah,
It's about
yeah,
adapting to
yeah,
what's going on. And
yeah.
yeah, it's one of those things. This is one of the reasons why I'm doing the podcast as well, because
Mm,
all of a sudden, what's going on with the conflict in the Middle East, it's made me reignite this passion for something that I
mm,
wanted to do 3 or 4 years ago,
mm.
which is why I'm now doing a podcast. Do I get paid
Yeah,
for it? No, but
yeah,
it's about that. It's about keeping your mind stimulated, keeping you stimulated, and having conversations with people like
mm,
yourself, like-minded individuals who are working with like-minded clients, but also have those similar same
mm.
challenges.
Yeah,
And it's about what next?
yeah.
What do I do next?
Mm.
So, thank you so much for your time today, Matt. Really appreciate it. And you've let us know everything about you and the time that you've had within the leadership environment and what Develop Your People does. But for anyone that wants to get in touch with you and understand what you do and how you do it, how could they go about doing that?
You will find me in all the normal places. You will find me on LinkedIn. Thank you, Jay, for putting up my contact details. There is my email address. Please feel free to drop me an email. Have a look at my website as well if you're interested. My crucial thing is I don't offer off the shelf. If you have a people related issue, leadership related issue that you think I might be able to help with, get in touch. We'll have a chat.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'll make sure that everyone can see your information. And for
Brilliant.
anyone listening on the podcast, I'll put it onto the description for them.
Brilliant.
But
Thank you very
as for
much.
today's Becoming the Leader in You podcast, again, all I can say is thank you for either watching or listening. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe so that you don't miss any of these episodes at all. From me, keep growing, keep leading, but most importantly, becoming the leader in you is most important. I've been Jay Acharya, and this has been my guest, Matt Brown of Develop Your People. Thank you
Thanks very
so much,
much.
everybody. Take care.